Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Jeff, and today we're going to take a look at the card magic book Club Fix by J. Jack. Let's get right to it. Welcome. If you're new here, I'm gbabbits and I'm a magician who likes to play with cards. Today we're going to dive into this book, or rather, this combination of 3 books by J. Jack. This is Club Fix 1 through 3. It's a nice 63-page long booklet and runs about $25 for the physical copy, but there is also an ebook option available as well. As usual, I'll leave a link down in the description where you can grab a copy. This book focuses on Andrew Normansell's trick that's named Club Sandwich. In Club Sandwich, 2 selections are made and they're placed into the deck. Then comes the magic. The first selection is found sandwiched between the 2 jokers on the top of the deck, and then replaced back into the middle of the deck. And bam! It's once again found between the 2 jokers on the top of the deck. Finally, the second selection is found in the middle of the deck. Guess what? Between the 2 jokers. Pretty cool, right? The original Club Sandwich trick has been sold out for quite a while though. You might be able to find it on aftermarkets if you're really interested, but the product page on Penguin makes it clear, Club Sandwich requires a custom gimmick. Fast forwarding to Club Fix, this book, J. Jack shares his approach to performing different variations of Club Sandwich, each without any gimmicks and completely impromptu. That's pretty nice, but let's rewind that a little and break it down more, because the 3 separate books technically bring 3 separate things to the table, all having a bit to do with card sandwiches, of course. Let's start with the table of contents. Taking a look at it, we actually see the first 10 or 11 pages of this booklet aren't from Club Fix 1, 2, or 3. It's all new material added specifically to this printing. They're all different sleights and flourishes, each used in at least one of the routines outlined in the rest of the book, so it's like a handy all-in-one reference. Club Fix 1 provides us with 6 entries, each a different impromptu variation on performing the trick. Now, to be fair, I don't know the handling of the original Club Sandwich routine, so I can't say whether any of these are easier or harder than it. However, they aren't that difficult to pull off, so even if they're technically harder, I wouldn't say that they're that hard. Club Fix 2 switches things up just a little bit. In this section, we deviate away from the Club Sandwich trick for the first couple of routines, and then revisit it with a fun gag added into it. The first trick in Club Fix 2 is called Now I See It, and it's a variation of Paint It Blank by John Bannon. It's still sandwich related and does require a gimmick, though it's not the same gimmick that Paint It Blank requires. The Club Sandwich related trick is called Not This Time and requires the use of blank face cards that have been modified. That said, they are the only non-standard cards needed and can easily be added to a regular deck mid-set or removed from the deck if you start your set with the trick. Not a huge deal in my opinion. Personally, the fun gag presented in the trick Not This Time is one that I really love to do myself. Not to give too much away, but the gist of it is you write little messages on the blank face cards to give a little surprise to the spectators and to send them looking elsewhere for their selection. It's a fun gag that I like to do with a single card, but applying it to a 2 selection sandwich is also pretty neat. Jumping ahead to Club Fix 3, we get yet another switch in content. This final section has 3 entries and each present different endings for the trick. Interesting, right? Honestly, reading through them, though the initial handling might start the same and you can feel the influence of Club Sandwich in them, I kind of get the impression that these are completely different tricks. Or perhaps that's just how we in the magic community define what a variation is. As a quick aside, if you're enjoying this video so far, I'd love if you would tap that like button. That way I can see how much you appreciate it and how well it's spreading to others. So thank you for doing that. So, we've covered what the book is about, but I bet you're curious. How is the book overall? To be upfront about it, it was a little difficult to read. Not expert at the card table difficult, but more so the general formatting of everything. There are some really lengthy paragraphs of explanation that could be split up to be made easier to consume. And remember back when I mentioned that in the beginning of the book we're given explanations and references of sleights? Well, there are several instances throughout the trick explanations that repeat the same information over and over, and sometimes in an incomplete way. My least favorite is actually in the very first routine called Basic Sandwich, where we're told how to do a jog shuffle, except it leaves off the end of the shuffle and assumes you did it. I do understand the need or desire in magic books to repeat instructions trick after trick. It makes them self-contained and is useful for the reader who's only looking at the specific trick, not reading the book cover to cover. However, because this book started off with explanations of sleights for reference, the repetition found throughout the rest of the book felt a little bit off to me, just unexpected, I'd say. The other quirk of this book is the illustrations, or are they photographs? I'm not sure which they are because they're really difficult to make out. Combined with the writing style that required me to reread things, the photos weren't super helpful. That said, the list of positives for this book are pretty good. When rereading the explanations, I took my own set of notes. They're short and sweet, and now when I go back to practice, it's much easier and faster to consume. I know not everyone wants to give that level of effort, but I've needed to do it for a handful of books, so for me, being able to do this negates the writing style. Breaking the different tricks down though, they're, like I mentioned, pretty easy to pull off. You still need to put in practice to get the sleights to go smooth, but they aren't that hard to do. And the fact that Club Fix presents you with multiple ways to do this trick, you're way more likely to find one or two to immediately add to your repertoire. This book actually reminds me of Less is More by Ben Earl. It's, as far as I can remember off the top of my head, the only book that's dedicated to repeating the same trick over and over and finding new ways to handle it. I'm sure there are others too. I can think of many tricks that deserve just that, but this one came to my mind first. Also worth noting, there are plenty of references mentioned throughout Club Fix. To get a book that's devoted to a single trick and that includes so many solid influences is pretty great. And better yet, I didn't even know a handful of them, so I have homework. And there you have it, folks. This is Club Fix 1 through 3. I want to send a big thank you to J Jack for sharing this book with me and for giving me a new old trick to add into my working repertoire. Again, the link's down in the description if you're hungry for a sandwich as well. As always, I'm gbabbits, and I'll catch you next time.